I think at this stage, before we play the stand-up bingo, we can mention a couple of the celebs. I'll go through most of them later on this evening. But on table 31, we have a few of the players from Stoke, the ex-players from Stoke. We have Mickey Pedgick, George Berry, George Jackson, Phil Heath, Paul Wears on table 33. Give those all a round of applause, ladies and gents. Also on table 31, we'd very much like to thank for coming along Dennis Smith, Jackie Moss, John Mahoney, also on table number 31. And John Rigero is on table 31 as well. Thank you very much indeed for coming along. On table 35, ladies and gentlemen, we have the legend that is Phil Graves with us this evening. Thank you very much indeed, Phil. And now we come to a few of the players that have graced the field along with the legends we've already mentioned. Please welcome one of the legends of football, Ipswich Town and England. Kevin Beat is with us, ladies and gentlemen. Kevin Beat is with us. Eddie Kelly's with us, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't recognise him earlier on. He's got hair like myself now. Eddie Kelly's with us. We've got Ian Steddon and Chris Mascully, and also Chris Mascully, I should say. Thank you very much indeed, those two gentlemen, for coming along this evening as well. And one of England's greatest left-backs of all time, ladies and gentlemen, is with us. Mr. Kenny Sampson's with us, ladies and gents. And we have, in my humble opinion, not only one of the greatest comedians, but one of the greatest game show hosts. You probably remember him from They Think It's All Over and things like that. Regular television people will know. Nick Hancock's with us as well, ladies and gents. Thank you very much indeed, Nick, for coming along this evening. And a gentleman that's going to say a few words on behalf of X-Pro a little bit later on. Please welcome Jeff Scott, ladies and gents. And on table 16, I've just noticed I missed one off. Mickey Thomas is with us, ladies and gents. Please give a welcome to Mickey Thomas.
Well, I'd just like to say it's a great pleasure to be here this evening, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, and for this X-Pro evening. And it's going to be a great thing, I think, for footballers, ex-footballers. So it's great to be part of that. Yeah, obviously I started my career at Leicester, young lad at Leicester, born and bred, and used to come down the old Filbert Street, age of 10, started on the terraces, used to train Tuesday and Thursday evening on the ground, out the old Filbert Street ground, and then I signed as an apprentice when I was 15, and of course, I've got to say probably my hero at the time was a fellow called Gordon Banks, who was at Leicester at the time, not a bad goalkeeper, Banksy, actually. And although I only had about a year with Gordon, I've got to say that even from the age of 11, I used to sort of watch him play and train. And I always think the thing about Gordon was that he had great positional play. And not only was he England goalkeeper, but he made things look easy. You know, these days, keepers are flying all over the place, full length, all about agility. And I thought that was pretty good. Another keeper I admired at the time was a fellow called Lev Yashin. If you don't know him, he was a Russian goalkeeper, he was 6'5", but used to wear all black, made himself look unbeatable. So I thought, I'll have a bit of that, I'll intimidate those strikers, you know, make myself look unbeatable. And finally, there was a little fella called Peter Bonetti, who used to play for Chelsea, and he was only 5'9" or something like that, but he used to have great agility. He used to spring around the goal, and used to get in the top corners and catch crosses. And apparently he got the nickname of the Cat, so I was told. It wasn't because of his agility, though. He was the only fella in the dressing room who could bend over and lick his own bollocks. But anyway. Sorry about that, ladies. There's the odd one or two words in this. I must apologise. But, no, Banksy was always a hero of mine. Obviously, I took over from him in the England team.
Obviously, everybody talks about your time here at Leicester City, which we're very, very proud to have you as a Leicester City man. You went on then, obviously, to play under the great Brian Clough. You must have one or two stories about Brian Clough.
Yeah, obviously... I went to Stoke in between that, from Leicester to Stoke. We've got a few Stoke people here tonight.
Lots of them, yeah, lots of them.
I think so, yeah. I might just be able to tell a story of that. But certainly, there's a bit of lucky at Stoke in the sense that we had a great team when I started, top of the league, for most of the first year, and the second season we had some bad luck. The roof blew off the stand and we had to sell all the players, and in fact I eventually joined Nottingham Forest. Do you remember that? It was unbelievable, wasn't it? They hadn't insured it and they had to sell every player we had. But
anyway, it's been great. I've been sitting with one of your sponsors and accountants over there for several days tonight. He did tell me the company name, but I was losing the will to live by then, really. I think you'll understand how glad I am to be up here at last, really. I was reading the Daily Telegraph coming up here today, actually, and I don't know if you read the Telegraph today. Anyway, I read it today. In fact, halfway through the evening, I began to wish I'd pulled it in with me, really. But, anyway, there was this survey taken in America, published in the Telegraph today, entitled "What is your greatest fear?" This survey, obviously taken prior to sitting next to an accountant. I don't know if you can guess what the greatest fear was, but I'll give you a clue: death came second. And the greatest fear, apparently, is standing up and speaking in public. And in show business, Willie will tell you, in show business, they reckon this is the hardest job of the lot. Standing up, speaking off dinner, being a stand-up comic, it's the hardest job of the lot. I think they're right. You know, it was all right for poor old Pavarotti. He used to waddle out on the stage at the Albert Hall, and he used to say, "Well, I think I'll sing Nessun Dorma." He didn't have some prat in the front shout out, "I've heard it." But, you know, it's difficult. It's difficult these days. You know, we've got a recession on. I've had to take all sort of weird do's, really. Even weirder than this, really.
Thank you very much. First of all, I think it's a great thrill for me to see that this dinner's finally happened. We've been working really hard towards this. It's also a great feeling being in a room with so many distinguished ex-professional footballers. Football today is a multi-million-pound industry. Transfer fees and salaries spiralling out of control. Statistically, the average Premier League player last year earned £1.5 million. Good luck to the guy. I wish I could have earned it. And in the room there are players that surely deserved it to earn that sort of money. Last year, a TV deal was signed by the Premier League, which actually brings in £2.6 billion over the next 3 years. But sadly, at X-Pro, we're actually operating in the less so glamorous side of football. There's actually 60,000 ex-professional footballers out there living in the UK and Ireland. 4 out of 5 of those footballers today have osteoarthritis, and you'll probably notice that when I walk off the stage. Many footballers today live with the effects, or should I say the excessive effects, of cortisone injections. Alzheimer's disease and dementia is commonplace. The most common call we get at X-Pro today is a call when a footballer's had depression. Depression leads to other forms of addictions. In many cases, depression and addiction is all too common in an ex-professional footballer. Footballers can't come to terms with giving up the game that they actually love. But instead of talking to you about the charity's activities, what I'd actually like to do is tell you about 2 case histories, current case histories. The first one, we received a call about a month ago about a relatively young person who was released by a now Premiership club quite some years ago and drifted into the lower leagues. The young man worked hard and managed to gain 25 appearances for the club he then played for. In his 25th appearance, the lad suffered a career-ending injury. That career-ending injury required reconstructive surgery for his right leg, and today the lad walks around with a brace on his right leg. The club in question allowed his contract to be run down, and they paid out his insurance, or some insurance money to him. The insurance money totaled £3,000, and with that £3,000 he bought into a window cleaning business. Probably not the brightest thing to do if you've had reconstructive surgery on your right leg. However, 3 years ago, that young man fell off his ladder and had to have his left leg amputated. The amputation didn't go too well. The prosthetic limb wasn't fitted properly. Today, the young man hobbles around on one leg. The thought of wearing the prosthetic limb is too painful. It's too painful with a leg on, and it's still painful with a leg off. 3 years ago, he wrote to football for some help and assistance. Today, he's still waiting for a reply. Expro swung into action a month ago. The first thing we did was send one of our welfare officers around, an unpaid welfare officer, a guy called Phil Maskery, who's sitting just in front of me. Phil gained the information about the young man, and as I say, we swung into action. We sent our financial guy around, and today we've actually achieved a rebate for him of £6,000 on various insurance policies. We've covered his shortfall on his mortgage, and he's now £3,000 positive. In addition to that, we're writing for medical information to try and get the lad assessed. We then intend to put a full report together and plead with football to actually get this lad sorted out. That's a young man. Today, I think he's around 42 years of age with no prospect ahead of him. There's psychological problems, there's mental problems, and there's financial problems. The second case I'd like to tell you about is actually a membership form that came into the office this Monday, and I'm going to read the letter out to you. Dear sirs, I enclose the membership, and I would like to say I think this is a brilliant idea. Ralph has a rare form of dementia for about 4 years now, and it's suddenly got a lot worse. I enclose some newspaper copies of other professional footballers who have suffered with some form of dementia. The articles say there are thousands who in later life have succumbed to debilitating health problems as a direct result of heading the heavy leather ball. Can it all be coincidental? Perhaps it's time someone looked into it. Ralph's dementia is front temporal, which is the same as boxers have. So is Ralph's dementia a result of having the heavy ball of the 1950s and 60s, and all for £20 a week? I think that last letter actually says it all, what Expo's all about. Ex-footballers are largely forgotten today. They're largely forgotten by a game that's awash with cash. They helped to create the game what it is today, and without them, the game wouldn't be what it is, and we wouldn't be in the state that we're in. Expro will strive to gain the recognition of thousands of ex-footballers like the two guys I've just mentioned who find themselves in this situation. I hope before you go tonight that you'll pick up a leaflet and look at what Expro is all about. It will explain far better than I ever can. That will describe the charity's aims and objections. It only leaves me to say thank you all for attending, and I really hope you have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Jeff Scott, ladies and gentlemen.